This is Anthony Iannarino, and you're listening to In the Arena.
Step into the arena. Give it all that you got. Into the arena. It's time to make it your best shot. Chase the dream and break the scene. Your opportunity is right here. It's right here. It's right now. Welcome to my arena.
When I asked Jill Konrath to step in the arena to talk about sales, I had an ulterior motive. Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, had just been released. It was on the cover of a whole bunch of magazines. It was all over the web, and a lot of people were talking about women in business. Well, Jill Konrath has been a leader in the world of sales and business, and she's particularly staked out a piece of leadership when it comes to women in sales, and she's built a strong community of women sales leaders. So I wanted to take the chance to talk to Jill about women in business, about the challenges of women managing their career. And Jill does an awesome job talking about this, and I think there's some great insights here. We're back with Jill Konrath. Jill, you've been inspirational to me. You've also built a strong community of women in sales, and you founded the She-Bang Conference, which I know you've now passed on. But tell me, how did you come to become a leader in this space?
Well, Anthony, I honestly did not set out or aspire to be a leader in this space. I was simply doing my job and being a wonderful consultant in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. I did at one point lose my clients, had to rebuild my entire business. It was the economy and it was Wall Street speaking, and suddenly I was out of clients and I had to figure out what did it take to get back into companies again when nobody was answering the phone and all calls were rolling to voicemail. And what I ended up doing is figuring it out and deciding, God dang it, there's nothing out there that tells people how to do this in today's business environment. So at that point, I said, I've got to write a book. And it was because I had solved a business problem that wasn't being addressed by anybody that I sat down and decided to write the book, that it had to be done. And so at that point, I started to become a vocal person out there in the space. And I never really aspired to the leadership position, but I always had this message that I wanted to share and to help other people, and that was driving me. And I was certainly well aware that I was moving into a leadership position, but it wasn't something that I aspired to. And what happened to me along the way is, as I was beginning to be more noticed out there, is I was getting calls from the media requesting, an interview, and people would say to me, "Oh, it's so nice to finally meet a woman sales expert who can talk about something besides networking and communication." And I felt like they were patting me on my head and saying, we have a lot of these sweet little things out there who can talk about, how to network better, but, you're talking strategy. And I went, oh my God, there's so many women sales experts who are really good, but they're not visible out there. They're not visible. And so I said, well, you need to talk to Colleen, and you need to talk to Wendy, and you need to talk. And I kept passing these media people off to other women because I knew of so many wonderful women sales experts. And so at some point I said to myself, why doesn't some woman step forward and be out there and be a big name? And I kept waiting for her to show up. And then one day I went, oh, criminy, I'm waiting for me. And the last thing in the world I wanted to do was to become the most visible woman sales expert out there. But somebody had to be out there because so many women are in sales today. And we are so sick of, bald-headed white guys, Anthony. I mean, I'm sorry.
Oh, my goodness.
But bald-headed white guys, much as I love them, and this is true, I do love them. But as a woman, you need something beside a bald-headed white guy to tell you how to sell.
You need the bald-headed white guy to bring Jill Konrath on the show.
Oh, God, yes. That's all the bald-headed white guys are for right now.
It's so true.
But it's true. I mean, I can't tell you how many sales conferences women have been to where there's the bald-headed white guy who is, pontificating how to sell, and he's talking about football and, like a sports analogy, and you got to quarterback the team, and you can't, you can't throw those Hail Mary passes, and you got to block and tackle along your way. And the women are going, what is this all about? Or they're talking about war, this is like not women, don't necessarily talk that way. And so I just really decided it was important to step forward and to become a visible role model out there for other women, and then to elevate other women sales experts at the same time.
You've done a tremendous job at that.
I've been working hard on it for about 5 to 7 years now. So
it's making a difference. I've noticed, and I've watched, and I think other people have noticed too. You've done a terrific job.
Thank you. There was a few years back when I was asked to provide a testimonial for a couple books, and 2 books, boom, boom, in a row from really nice white guys, bald white guys, and they each had a bunch of quotes in their books. And I said to both of them, "Are you writing this book only for men?" And they said, "No, Jill, why?" And I said, to the one guy, "You have 32 quotes in your book, and 29 are by men, and 3 are from anonymous. And you haven't got a quote from one woman at all." It's like, think about us. We are a big part of the sales force. You have to hear us. We're there. And if you consistently do white guy thinking, you're missing the boat on people who could learn from your stuff, but are being turned off by it because it's all white guy thinking.
I think you're right about that. I agree with you.
Most people think about it.
I look at particularly my blog stats, and the percentage of men to women is about 55% women to men on my blog. I mean, so it's predominantly women reading my blog, and they're predominantly at work when they're reading it.
And more women buy books than men, too, by the way.
Well, and more are reading my blog, and I appreciate that. I was a guy who grew up with a single mom and now has, twin daughters. I'm more sensitive to the issue. So let's go back in time, and let's say there's a young woman listening to the show. She's just starting in sales. She wants to succeed in business. What would you say to her? And is there something that you wish you would have known when you started sales? And maybe you can build this around the challenges that you faced and that women face in business and in sales.
I think there are a couple of challenges that I'd like to address to that question. The first one is the just starting out challenge. When you're working in an organization where there are so many males around, you sort of are caught up in the male way of doing things. And when I worked at Xerox, which is where I began my career, it was all about kind of a macho way, like you were really cool if you could make a lot of calls. It was like a badge of honor if you were busting your butt and making those calls and prospecting. And then they were talking about getting in bed with the prospects and, the whole sexual references when I was there. But so it was really about a very male way of getting the business. It was a very aggressive way of getting the business. And I really think that women come to this profession with some attributes that men don't possess. And these attributes are huge in today's business environment. And what I would like to say to the young women or any woman who's out there listening, that our ability to, number one, be really good at questioning is probably one of the best skills that we can have. And to realize that, we think we don't talk real well, and we're not, big storytellers, and we're not, we don't like to pontificate and go on and on. Our quiet way of asking questions, if we can be strategic about it and actually think and, notice the questions. Our questions are extremely powerful, and people see us as valuable resources based on the questions that we ask. And so by our very nature, we are more attuned to asking questions and having and inviting and incorporating groups in and working through things with people. And these are skills that are essential in today's business environment. And also the fact that we don't try to be the know-it-all, and that what we don't know is, and saying it is fine. It is, it's okay to say, that's an interesting thing. I'm going to have to go check, and not to be meager about it, but to be fine with saying, I don't know. Good question. I'll have to go back to the office and check, because we need to find that out. So that's, I guess, what I would say is that we possess many natural skills which make us really good in the sales profession, and we have to do it our way, not the way of the others.
If you look at the new research on fMRIs, they speak to women and they speak to men and they watch the brain activate. And on men, only one small region on one side of the brain is activated. And in women, both sides of the brain are activated because you truly are listening twice as well as men are. And that comes across in my mind for clients as caring, because instead of wanting to talk, some listening is probably the greatest act of caring in my mind when you're sitting, especially sitting in front of a client.
Right. There's some interesting research too about even looking at toddlers, male and female, and what differentiates them as 2 to 3-year-old kids. And when you talk to little boys or you observe little boys talking, little boys have a very hierarchical way of talking. And if one little boy says, "I have a big truck," the other little boy says, "My truck is bigger." And then they kind of keep escalating. I mean, there's a commercial on right now about my dad eats big meals at McDonald's, and my dad can eat more than your dad. And so there's this hierarchical thing with boys trying to be bigger. And when you look at little girls communicating, if a little girl would say, "My truck is big," the other little girl would say, "Really? My truck is big too." And they would be talking, "Isn't that cool? We both have big trucks." And that creates the connection and a bond with people. And that's a natural tendency that women have to create that connection and bond that we need to leverage.
Let me push you on the harder part of that first question. What about the challenges for women in business? It's different for women than it is for men in business.
It is. It is. And women are getting hit up by men still, especially the younger women. It was an experience that I had when I was out there, and I had to learn how to handle aggressive men who wanted to have affairs or wanted to take me out for a few drinks, afterwards. And I work and speak every year to a women's sales class, people that are majoring in sales at a local university, and they're all women, and they're all reporting getting hit up on too. So this is something that women have to deal with that men don't have to deal with at an early stage. But if you take a look as the career advances, and most women do learn how to deal with that over time, but women are oftentimes put in a position where they have to make career choices that they can't do everything. And you and I were talking earlier about this, about you've got a wife at home, and she's working now, but when your kids were little, your wife was at home, which allowed you the flexibility of building your career as you saw fit, because you had an incredible support system there, who probably, if you were wearing pressed shirts, she'd take them to she'd press them for you, and she'd, handle everything that had to be done. Whereas a woman, you're still, if you're working in sales, you may be a single mother, which means you've got the whole boatload on you, or you've got a husband who's working too, and now you have to juggle everything, and you don't have that support system. And I can tell you, I have a wonderful husband who was always supportive of my career, but he never went out of the way to make it easy for me, and he never molded his life around me. And so I made career choices that perhaps delayed where I'm at today, because I had to say no to so many things, and that's just the way it is. And we don't have huge, deep pockets, so you just did the best you could, and with what you had. But a woman can't do it all. I mean, and I don't have a wife, and much as I'd love to have a wife, sometimes I don't. A lot of people forget that. And what you think about women, what women do, it's incredible what they are able to accomplish with everything else that many of them have going on in their life.
My mom started a business when I was 13, no money, 4 kids. We lived in an apartment that was so small I could fit it in my great room. And first off, I can't imagine the courage that it took for her to do that. And at that time, as a woman, she went to the bank with her partner and went to borrow money. And they said, if you can bring one of your husbands back to cosign, we'll give you a loan. Well, neither one of them, they were both 2 single moms. They didn't have a husband between them to sign. And they literally bought 2 $25 desks, pushed them together, and they still sit with the 2 desks pushed together now, 32 years later. But they built this big business, and it's what women were up against then, and I think in some ways still are.
In many ways, they still are. It's just slightly different. I mean, yes, you can get a loan today, but the thing is, your mother balanced 4 kids at the same time she was doing that. She didn't have a wife at home. She She did everything.
I'm baffled as to how she did it. It's tough with two people.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So this is, I thank you for sharing this because you've been strong in this community. And I wanted to say something. There is this problem, though, that they have babies and they go away. And I think the challenge for businesses now is to find a way to make that transition out and back easy for a woman to do. And I think it's still difficult for business because we still pretend that we have to show up to the office and we have to do these things when there's a lot of work that can be done from anywhere.
A lot of work that can be done from anywhere, and there's ways of dividing jobs where you don't necessarily have to have full time for also, for the entire child rearing years. A lot of women want to stay involved professionally. They just don't want to do it 60 hours a week.
Yeah, they can't.
No, because they're trying to juggle too many other things that are of more importance to them in many cases than the work. So they walk away and they get behind a little bit in their skills and stuff, and then that affects their ability to jump back in as well. So we need to do some stuff in the business environment in order to capitalize on the incredible talents of these women who are stepping out of the workforce right now.
That was worth coming back for, wasn't it? I told you it would be. You can find Jill Konrath at jillkonrath.com, and that's Konrath with a K. I'm Anthony Iannarino, and you can find me at thesalesblog.com. When you get there, sign up for the newsletter. You have to sign up for the newsletter. It's my best content each week. You'll love it. I'll see you next week right here in the arena.